Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today, I'm here to talk to you about 3 books. We're going to do non-spoiler reviews for 3 novellas. These novellas are Silence is Silver by Andrew Watson, The Princess of Oldir by Bryan Wilson, and New York Minute by Stephen Aryan. All 3 of these books are self-published. And I think all 3 of them came out this year. I could be wrong. Maybe all 3 came out this year. So, in fact, New York Minute, as we record, as you guys watch this, in fact, because it comes out in October and it's currently technically September, New York Minute isn't actually out yet, but you'll be able to read it very, very soon. The other 2 books, Silence is Silver and Princess of Oldir, are both free if you sign up for the newsletters for the particular authors in question. So I would definitely recommend doing that to read these books. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each novella in turn. I'm going to do them in the order that I read them. So I'll be starting with Silence is Silver and finishing up with New York Minute, and you can probably guess where Princess of Oldir is going to be. So, Silence is Silver. As you guys know, I really enjoyed Harbinger of Justice, the first book by Andrew Watson, the first book in his Shadowbinders universe. So there's a character in those books called Baz, and Baz was a member of a kind of like secret underground society sort of thing that nobody was really aware of. Baz was a character that, or Bas, and you can't see my face, but as long as the microphone's still working, this is fine. Hi Barry, I hope you're enjoying being part of the video. So, so Baz is part of this underground society, and they live in this like cave system beneath the desert of the world of the Shadowbinders universe. And they have a very, very interesting societal dynamic where they're, taken from their parents and raised by committee in groups and then pitted against each other. It's a very winner takes all sort of society, survival of the fittest sort of thing. And we meet Bas in this book as he is leading up to his graduation test, so where he stops being a child and starts being an adult, so high school graduation sort of time, I don't know. And what this test is they have to race across the desert and bring home an egg from this kind of terrifying predator bird. And the first one back, or the first 3 back with the egg, get to be top of the class. And Bas is the most skilled, essentially, the cleverest, the best, the member of his group, his year group. And the beginning kind of half of the book is world building and talking to us about this kind of secret society that he lives in, and how it runs, and introducing us to a few characters and introducing us to kind of what's going to happen in the testing procedure. And then the second half is the test and the aftermath. Or maybe less than half is the test and the aftermath, but it's kind of how the story is split, if that makes sense. Whether it's half and half, I don't know. So I ended up giving this novella 3 stars. I thought that it was good, but I don't know if it particularly played to Andrew's strengths. So I thought Andrew's strengths were in kind of in the previous book, were in kind of fun character interactions, and the particular group that we're spending time with are kind of the opposite of fun. They are very serious, they're quite stoic, they're not very emotional, and that didn't give Andrew as much room to play with his kind of humorous and acerbic dialogue that I really enjoyed in Harbinger of Justice. And I think that also the novella format didn't 100% suit him as a writer, because there's quite a lot of time that he spends on the world building of this society and that sort of aspect, and less time on the test and the like what's going on in the test. And depending on the kind of reader that you are, this could be like, wow, 5-star, best novella I've ever read. But for me, I think that I wanted maybe a little bit less of a focus on that world building, and possibly that world building could have been spread out a bit more throughout the book rather than kind of lumped together. Like I said before, it does feel like a bit of a book of two halves, and I really enjoyed the second half, but the first half I was just kind of waiting for something to happen. And while I was never bored or like there was not even a thought in my mind of DNFing this book, I definitely in the first half of the book was like, this isn't really what I came to this novella for, if that makes sense. So I just think that while the writing was very good and I really enjoyed the action, I enjoyed the test section at the other half, the second half of the novella, I feel like Andrew's like his skill set leads him towards a like multiple POV fantasy in the style of Harbinger of Justice, where it's a bit more I don't want to say fun. I did have more fun reading Harbinger of Justice. There are some dark moments, but I feel like I had more fun reading it. Whereas this book, because it was a bit more like serious across the story, and the characters were a bit more serious, I felt like this didn't really play into Andrew's strengths. So while it's funny because I feel like I'm giving a lot of negative criticism here, and I do want to say that I really enjoyed the book. I did miss the main cast from Harbinger of Justice. I thought the writing was good. I thought the characters were strong, and like well realized, and the world building was very good. And obviously, you know, that was a big chunk of the book. But I do feel like the pacing, maybe for me personally, and the kind of reader I am, where I do kind of like things to be a bit more active, I think there's a little bit off on my personal preference. But you know, this is reminiscent of books like, for example, Shadow of the Gods, which I almost DNF'd at 100 pages in, and I ended up really, really loving. And I think that while I enjoyed Silence is Silver more than that first 100 pages of Shadow of the Gods, I do think that Andrew's just suited better to writing longer books, based on the two that I've read. Next up, Princess of Oldir by Bryan Wilson. So, A Princess of Oldir is about a character called Rana. She is the princess of, well, she's not really the princess. She's like the son of the ruler of this planet called Oldir. And she is able to use the like power system from this world, which is, I believe, called the Power of the Stars. She's able to wield this power, which is called wielding in the book. And they're her and her father and the kingdom, or the planet, I guess, are in kind of a sticky political situation where they're having a bit of a tough time with like terrorists and pirates and all that sort of stuff outside of their cities, and they're really struggling to kind of keep their planet under control. But also in their system is a much more militaristic planet, which has a big army, and the leader of that planet is very well liked, and they're going into a like summit where her father is going to basically propose an alliance with this militaristic planet in order to clear out their trouble on their world, and then they'll work together to protect the sector as a whole. So I really liked the politics in this book. I really like space politics stuff, and that's a really big draw for me. While I did not particularly understand the power system very well, the power of the stars stuff, the wielding, I do feel like there was enough there that I understood what I needed to know for the novella, and I felt like this was a good tease for reading the rest of the series. I feel like the aim for both of these novellas is to tease you into reading the rest of the series, and Princess of Oldir really worked for me in that regard. I do wish though that it had been a little bit more standalone. I think that a lot of stuff happens and I was kind of like, well, I guess if I'd read the books I probably would know what was going on here. And when I actually looked up afterwards, it did say in the description that it was best to be read, I think, after book 2 in this series. So like in the kind of like author's preferred order, you would have a lot more knowledge about the series and about the world and about the powers at play. I felt like there was a little bit of a hint towards like this kind of anti-imperial sentiment in the series, and a lot of that stuff I really enjoyed. And I thought that the world of Oldir that this was set on was not particularly interesting. But one of the big drawbacks with novellas is you kind of had the choice of whether to spend your time on the world building, and then you get something like Silence of Silver, which isn't going to work for everyone, or you have a chance to go like, I'm going to focus on just telling this story and kind of hope that I'm dragging you along with me and that you're willing to give me the benefit of the doubt. And that's kind of the method that Bryan goes for in his book. This one also I rated 3 out of 5. I thought that it was good and it enticed me to read the full series, but there were parts of the book where I was a bit like, I don't know, like I wasn't very attached to Rana. None of the characters really like stuck with me, and again, because of the small scope of the story, mostly being set inside like a single like it's like set inside like a palace and a spaceport. There's kind of like those two locations. I was not as interested in the world, if that makes sense. So am I giving opposite criticisms of both of these novellas? Kind of, but for me neither of them 100% worked. I'm obviously very in on Shadowbinders and will be reading The Black Mantle book 2 as soon as it's released, and also I'm going to be reading Power of the Stars. That kind of preview from the novella was enough to intrigue me to see what the main story of the universe is, and also Rana apparently fits in to future books, so I kind of want to see where that goes. I would like to see whether my investment in time in terms of reading the novella is going to pay off at a later date. So both, if the aim of both of these books were to interest me in the series, Shadowbinders didn't really need to do that because I was already in, but Princess of Oldir definitely has done that.
Hello, I'm in a field, and I'm here to talk to you about Your Paper Quest. Your Paper Quest is a bookish subscription box that is very kindly sponsoring this month of content on the channel. If you subscribe to Your Paper Quest, you will get 2 self-pub indie books selected by the editors over at Your Paper Quest, sent to you every single month. That is roughly 600 pages of fiction. Those books will be usually on a theme, like a genre such as fantasy, sci-fi or horror. And you won't just get those books, you'll also get some bookish bits in the box, and on top of that you'll also get access to the Your Paper Quest book club, where you can talk to other subscribers who are reading the books and ask questions of the authors. The authors will also post a monthly interview, and you can have this monthly, bi-monthly or quarterly in the US or the UK. And if you're interested, you can subscribe using my discount code SAM20, which will get you 20% off of your bookish box, and it will also help the channel. So happy reading, and thanks for subscribing if you have.
Now we're going to come on to the final novella review, and I'm going to tell you now in advance, before I even talk about the review, that this one was 5 stars. It's one of the best novellas I've ever read, pretty much, and this was a bit of a surprise. It is from an author who is traditionally published, but this is his first ever self-published work. So this is from Stephen Aryan. Stephen Aryan is the author of the Judas Blossom series, which I know my friend Mare is a huge fan of. Now, New York Minute is a fascinating crime thriller set in an alternate New York. So the basic concept is, at some point in the future, the people of Earth have absolutely destroyed Earth, and they're like, right, we're moving on, we're going to another place. They go to another planet or another universe, it's never really specifically said, and they set up base camp, basically. And base camp is New York, and they rebuild a lot of the city, and they build some skyscrapers, and then basically the people of that world rebelled and were like, we don't want to rebuild the old world, we want to go back to basics, we want to get rid of technology, we want to get rid of skyscrapers, we want to get rid of like faceless metal buildings, we want like connection and people. And so you have this world that has kind of the ghost of our New York. So places are still called, like Hell's Kitchen, the Bronx, Brooklyn, etc. But they are they're very different. Like there's no Central Park in the New York of New York Minute. There is like a fantasy drug called Sky. Everyone uses swords and shields because the kind of trappings of futuristic life did not come across from our world, or if they did, they aren't present anymore in New York Minute. So the world of New York Minute is very much estranged from our world, and it seems like it's been a very long time since humanity has moved over. There's a few really interesting and tantalizing hints into the world that was left behind. So there's a discussion of artificial men, and one of the characters has a steel, like a robotic heart, in a cabinet in their house. And I mean, this is all, I've spent minutes now talking to you just about the world and about the world building, and all of this is delivered really subtly across the book. So you get a few kind of little hints at the beginning as to what's going on, and then more and more as you spend more time in the city of the alternate New York, the other New York, I think Stephen Aryan talks about it as. These kind of hints at the world building are all very subtly weaved throughout the book, and I really, really enjoyed that. The fact that this is like 140 pages and has me absolutely like completely hooked and desperate for more, in the same way that when I read like the first Dresden Files book, or and in fact it's very reminiscent of Dresden Files because it has a really good first person perspective. It's got a really interesting mystery, and it kind of ends in a really satisfying way, and in a quite surprising way as well. Now, what is the story actually about, which I haven't said? So the main character is a ex-cop turned private eye called Cole Blackstone. He is dragged out of bed one morning by a gangster and is asked or tasked to find this gangster's missing daughter. Now, we don't know how long she's been missing, we don't know who took her, we don't know why she's been taken, we don't know if she's even been taken. She could just have been on a bender. So there's so much interesting stuff going on in this book, and the characters are really well realised. I think that Stephen Aryan is very smart in using a few tropes to build his characters, which helps you build that relationship with them quickly. So you have the the ex-cop private eye trope, for example, which is very well worn territory but Stephen Aryan is able to pull your kind of thoughts and your impressions of past iterations of that character that you may be familiar with and use those to build a rapport between yourself and Cole. Cole's best friend slash bodyguard slash heavy is a man named Bryan, who is suffering from a fantasy disease called the Slate, which is incredibly well done. I really enjoyed the kind of slow reveal of what Slate is doing to Bryan, with some actually quite poignant and emotional moments for that character, despite the fact that, again, this is 140 pages worth of book. The mystery in and of itself, as I said before, is quite satisfying. The way that things slowly unfold, and the way that you see those slowly unfold from Cole's perspective. And I had some theories as the book was going along, but I never really guessed 100% what was going on, which I thought was really, really good. And when it came to it at the end, there were a couple of really fun reveals, there was a good surprise, and then there was a really good action-packed conclusion, which I really enjoyed. The book ends in a way to set up further adventures for Cole and Bryan, and to kind of give you this tantalizing, like, there's more out there in this world. So absolutely, round of applause for Stephen Aryan. I really, really loved this novella, and I wrote in my Goodreads review that I'm genuinely struggling to think of a novella that I enjoyed more than this one. It absolutely absorbed me. The fact that I have not really had much time to read, but I still managed to carve out specifically, I think I read this in under 24 hours. Like, I carved out specific time to finish this book. Just an absolute treasure. If you are looking for something short that is going to really draw you in, that has really well-rounded characters and fascinating world building, and you also like kind of urban fantasy or city-based thrillers and noir crime storytelling, but in like a fantasy world, then that is something that you should absolutely look up. I was surprised and delighted by this novella, and honestly, I think it may end up being one of my favourite reads in September. I mean, even thinking back to the other books I've read in September, I've read some real bangers, but I do think that New York Minute had basically everything that I wanted. So congratulations and thank you, Stephen Aryan. I did receive a early review copy of this book in exchange for an honest review, and in terms of disclosure, Stephen and I did know each other many years ago and hung out on like 2 occasions, but very tangentially, like online friendship, friends or friends sort of thing. So can you trust my opinion? I don't know. Maybe I'm biased, but I think that this is just a fantastic novella, and you should do yourself a favour and pick it up. Definitely buy yourself a copy. I'll be buying myself a copy because I definitely want to keep this one around and read it again in future, especially if further stories come out in this world. I think a reread will absolutely be on the cards. If anything, like I said before, this reminded me a lot of Dresden Files, and this reminded me a lot of Stephen King's Bill Hodges trilogy. And in fact, I would say if you took kind of a mix between the two characters, so somebody who is between the kind of younger Harry Dresden and the older Bill Hodges, meeting in the middle is kind of where I feel like Cole Blackstone exists. I just had a lot of fun with this book, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I would highly recommend it to everyone. So best novella of September, hands down, is New York Minute. While I actually was not aware that Stephen had written so many other books, so I've just purchased Battle Mage, which is his first book and as you guys know, I like to read authors in publication order, so I am going to be trying to fit Battle Mage in at some point in the near future. I know that I owe an entire month of subscriber selected reading, which I will be doing, but I need to catch up on some other stuff first. So I hope that you are happy to be patient with me. If you would like to nominate a book for my month of subscriber reading, please do so. There will be a link in the description down below. There'll also be links to purchase or sign up for the newsletters to receive all of these books. And I genuinely hope that you have enjoyed watching this video. If you have any questions about these books, if you'd like to ask me, whether I'd recommend X or Y book as a fan of something else, or you've read these books and you'd like to chat to me at all down below, then please do so. If you liked this video, then please give it a like. And of course, finally, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe. I would love to have you as part of this small little bookish community. And I look forward to speaking to you tomorrow.